No. Good class. I'd like to take the chance to welcome you to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Columbia on this very tropical day. Just pretend you're in the tropics. My name is Pat Moore, and I'm your service leader for the day. Our minister is Reverend Stephen Robinson, who is not here today, but we have a special guest speaker from our congregation, Craig Chattin, who you're going to hear from shortly. You have fans here, Craig. Our services are streamed on YouTube and Zoom, but no matter how you choose to join us, you're always welcome. But for more information about the UUCC, please visit our website at uucolumbia.org, and you can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram. We also provide weekly email updates each Thursday, so look for those. We welcome families with children, and we provide childcare during our services for infants and children up to the age of 4. To volunteer, just see Bethany Storlazzi. Is Bethany here, or is she in the back? Okay. Just see her if you are interested in volunteering. We're always looking. Today, children and youth are going to remain in the service with their families, unless you are under 4. And you can bring toys that you found at the back of the social hall, and there's an area right back there for children where parents can sit there and supervise, and they can have something to do. Today's flowers are provided by the flower team, which is part of the worship committee. And if you would like to bring flowers for a special occasion, please contact Linda Brennison, who is right there. So see her after the service if you'd like to bring flowers and to remember somebody. Let's now do our prelude, It Ain't Necessarily So.
Thank you, Pat. I'm going to do this piece that you've all heard. It's from Porgy and Bess, written by George and Ira Gershwin. It's sung by a character in the cast named Sportin' Life, whatever kind of name that is. And he really doesn't understand that some of the things he reads in the Bible could be really so. So he sings this piece entitled, It Ain't Necessarily So. Well, it ain't necessarily so. It ain't necessarily so. The things that you're liable to read in the Bible, they ain't necessarily so. For example, Moses was found in a stream. Moses was found in a stream. He was saved from the water by old Pharaoh's daughter, and they say Moses was found in a stream. Can you imagine her going home and saying, "Look, Dad, what I found in a stream"? And Jonah, they say he lived in a whale. Jonah, he lived in a whale. He made his home in a fish's abdomen. And they say Jonah, he lived in a whale. Well, it ain't necessarily so. It really ain't necessarily so. The things that your preacher is trying to teach her, they ain't necessarily so. David was small, but oh my. Oh, David was small, but pretty big, I guess. He fought big Goliath, who laid down and dieth. David was small, but oh my. Methuselah, another story, Methuselah. He lived 900 years. Methuselah lived 900 years. But who calls that living when no gal will ever give in? to a man who's lived 900 years. It ain't necessarily so. It ain't necessarily so. The things that your preacher is trying to teach ya, it ain't necessarily so.
Thank you, Richard. If you'll join me now and stand and join me in the Congregational Covenant. It's in your order of service. Love is the doctrine of this congregation. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve others in community. Thus do we covenant with one another. Please be seated. Welcome again. Unitarian Universalism is a diverse and non-creedal religion, and our community is based on deeds, not creeds. We're a covenantal religion, which means that we don't have to believe the same in order to treat each other the same, with respect, equity, compassion, and dignity. We side with love, embracing and welcoming all people. Our board members and committee chairs welcome your questions and comments. They really do. They want feedback. And you can recognize them. They have on green name tags, so look for them. And now we would like to recognize any guests or visitors that are here today. And Alyssa is going to help us to pass the microphone around so that we can hear you. So if you'll wait for the microphone, and if you're willing and able, please rise and share with us your name and where you're from. Or if you have guests with you, please rise and introduce them. Do we see anybody today? Oh.
Emerson and Kathy Smith, and we've been here many times in the last many years, but we came especially to hear the sermon today.
Welcome, Emerson. Anyone else? Okay, thank you, Alyssa. And visitor, if you'd like to know more, please fill out a visitor card and that you can find in the back of the seat and place it in the collection plate, and then we will email you about any upcoming events. Okay, now this starts the real beginning of our service with our chalice lighting. And we've got somebody that's fairly new to light our chalice today. This is Cammie Mack. Pack, I'm sorry. I'm a Southerner, I don't produce it. I don't, pronounce consonants. Thank you, Cammie. Spirit of light and life coming to us. Now let's do our opening hymn.
This
Hymn number
hymn
355.
is number 335, and I want you to pay attention to the lyrics as you sing it. Sometimes we don't. We say, oh, it's just a song, let's sing it. But watch the lyrics. I'm going to play it through once so you'll remember how it goes. And then you can, oh, you're already standing. Okay, good. Once when my heart was passion-free, to learn of things divine, the soul of nature suddenly outpoured the self in mine. I have the secrets of the deep and of the heavens above. I hear the you. Be seated, please.
Now I have the distinct honor of introducing to you a dear friend, Craig Chattin. He has been a member of Unitarian Universalism since 1985. That was in Washington State, and then he went to Connecticut, and then finally Augusta, Georgia, before he came here in 2016. That's when he met Gene Capalbo. Craig served 7 years in the Navy, during which time he studied nonfiction writing through coursework. And then after the Navy, he began a full-time career as a technical writer and a business communications specialist for several corporations. In retirement, he said he still enjoys creative writing, and recently he wrote and produced 3 plays that were performed here. Craig? He has opening words for us.
My turn?
Yes, your turn.
Good morning. Much of my talk today is informed by the writings of Bertrand Russel. Russell was a British mathematician, by the way, an advanced mathematician, award-winning, groundbreaking mathematician. I didn't know that before. So he was a mathematician, a logician, a philosopher, a historian. Bertrand Russell was one of the 20th century's most prominent public intellectuals. He was born in 1872 and died in 1970. Russell was a pacifist, an atheist, and a rare Englishman who championed anti-imperialism. That's guts. He went to prison twice and was fined on multiple occasions for his pacifism, his outspoken atheism, and his outspoken resistance to using national troops as strikebreakers. Went to jail for that. In 1938, he modified his pacifist views during Hitler's reign and described the war in that case as a necessary evil. He received the Nobel Prize in 1950 in literature in recognition of his various and significant writings in which he championed humanitarian ideals and freedom of thought. Sound familiar? So in keeping with our topic of the day, the consequences of false belief, I quote the following words from a Russell essay entitled On Avoiding Foolish Opinions. Quote, "If an opinion contrary to your own makes you angry, that is a sign that you are subconsciously aware of having no good reason for thinking as you do. If someone maintains that 2 and 2 are 5, or that Iceland is on the equator, you feel pity rather than anger. The most savage controversies are those about matters as to which there is no good evidence either way." Mark Twain, another giant of 19th and early 20th century letters, sums it up much more succinctly, like your opening song. "It ain't what you don't know that gets you into trouble. It's what you know for sure that just ain't so."
Now Craig's going to do our story for all ages. If all children, old and young, would come down.
Who we got here? Oh, boy, that's a little tiny, teeny one's coming up here. This may be a little bit advanced for them, but if you all will just pretend you're 8 years old, I'm going to read you the story. We good? Okay. Well, this may be a little complicated for you little guys, but for you bigger guys, I think you'll follow it all right. Once upon a time, there was a little farm where a boy named Loki lived, and he had a big sister named Anya. Well, hi kids. There we go. Okay, we'll start over.
We're a little slow picking our toys today.
That's all right. We're good now. All right. This is a story about a little boy named Loki. He's about this tall, and he had a big sister named Anya, and she was about that tall. And one warm summer day, Loki and Anya decided to go berry picking in the forest, where Anya knew where this great big clearing was with lots and lots of blackberries. And their mom had told them, when you go into the forest, be sure you stay on the trails and on the paths because, you know, there's poison ivy and there's ticks and snakes and all kinds of things, so stay on the path. And they said, we'll be careful, Mama. So off they went. Well, Loki was getting a little worried because they'd been walking down this forest road a while, and he asked Anya, are we getting there? Are we almost there? And she says, don't worry. You see this little path up here? We take that. And they took that path, and before you know it, they went into this great big berry patch. It was a clearing as big as this room and as round as a soccer ball, and all the way around it were dozens and dozens of blackberry bushes. Can you hold up your thumb? Because that's how big the blackberries were, as big as your thumb. And so they went round and round and round the blackberry patch, picking and picking and picking, and they filled their bucket up. And Anya said, okay, it's time to go home. And she turned. Where do we come in? There's a path over here and there's a path over there. Which path did we come in on? And Loki says, I think it might be one of those over there because the sun was behind us and that's the way to go. So Anya said, okay, we'll take that path. And off they went. Well, they hadn't walked very far at all, and they came to this great big old orange fox sitting beside the trail. And Anya said to Loki, I know that fox. I know that guy. His name is Slade. You got to be careful with him. And Slade said, hello there. Yeah, so you got some berries, huh? And Anya said, yeah, Slade, could you please tell us what... if we're on the right path? And Slade said, yeah, I can tell you, but do me a favor, though. And Anya said, what favor? And Slade says, well, give me all them berries in that bucket, and I'll tell you which path to go on. So Anya looked at Loki, and Loki looked at Anya. No, we're not giving him our berries. We worked too hard for these. Besides, we know that Slade. He's a big, fat liar. And Loki said, yeah, he's a big, fat liar, pants on fire. And so, let's go. So they kept walking. And pretty soon they came to a little pond, and this big fish comes swimming up and jumping up in the air and running in circles, blowing bubbles. And Anya said, fish, slow down, stop a second. Is this the right path to get back to the main forest road? And the fish said, blub, 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 and he jumped up and he blew more bubbles, and he said, well, who do you care what path you're on? All roads lead to Rome, you know. And Anya and Loki looked at each other. This guy's just silly. We can't get any information from him. So they went on their way, and pretty soon they heard, whoo, and they looked up, and there's this great big owl. The owl was as tall as Loki. He was up in the trees. And Anya said, that's Hubert. That's Hubert the owl. I know him. And Hubert said, hey, kids, that's nice berries you got there. But you know, you look a little worried. What's the trouble? And Anya said, we're not sure we're on the right path to get back to the main road. Hubert flew down, said, I'll show you, don't worry. And he lifted up his wing, and he stuck his head under his wing. And he said, okay, fiction, nonfiction, self-help. There it is, references. And he reached in there and he pulled out a big map and he spread it out on the ground and said, okay, I'm going to prove to you you're on the right path. And he showed him where the berry patch was, the pond. He says, here we are right here. And just up here ahead is the main road, so you're fine. Oh, thank you, Hubert. Now we feel so comfortable and happy. And so off they went, and they were home in a few minutes. And Mama was so happy to see that bucket of berries. She says, I'm going to make you a great big giant pie with these berries. Oh, boy. Oh, and by the way, children, did you have any trouble in the woods? And the kids looked at each other and laughed and slapped high five. And that was the end of the story. Now, was there anything to learn from this story? Did you learn anything from it? You got to what? You got to know where you're going, and you also have to know who to ask where you're going, right? You don't want to ask a big old fat liar, and you don't want to ask some silly person who just has nonsense. You want to talk to somebody who knows what they're talking about and that you can trust. If you're lost, ask a policeman. If you have trouble with your schoolwork, ask your teacher. If it's something in your personal life troubling you, ask your parents. Somebody that knows and somebody you trust. So there we go. Now we can, oh, wait a minute. When you get older and you start getting interested in the news, you don't want to ask that fox. Thank you for coming up. You have fun today.
Thank you, Craig. Now I know where to go if I need a fish voice in my next. Now's the time for our candles of community. And this is the point where if you have a significant personal joy, sorrow, or concern that you'd like to share from this pulpit, then please email or text our minister by noon on the Friday before. Or if you wish to share in person, we request that you pick up a candle in the foyer prior to the service. Also, I want to remind you that we do have an active caring committee for those in need, and they all wear yellow name tags, so see them if you would like to help with something. Do we have people? Okay, go ahead. Oh, sorry.
I'm lighting this candle in memory of Julian Mingy. I think most of you know he passed away Wednesday morning. And at the same time this morning, the partner church pilgrims are off on their way to Romania. And there's a big link because Lee and Julian were the ones that brought the partner church together with us. As you know, Julian, or maybe not, he was a political geographer. Oh, boy. Yeah, professor emeritus at the university. And after the Berlin Wall fell, he was very curious about going to Eastern Europe. So he and Lee took off to Berlin, and then they traveled by car through rough roads and made it to Romania and Berstetsy and met this partner church community. And since then, 25 years? How many years? Something like that. Anyway, we've had a connection with this wonderful group of people, and as you know, Jolt Solomisi, the minister there. So, and Julian was our best man at the first time we got married in Budapest. He and Lee.
Our Unitarian wedding.
At a Unitarian wedding at a Unitarian church in Budapest. It was the Bela Bartok Church. And I want to say our second wedding, we had to make it legal, was at our house, and Emerson Smith, our guest here, officiated. So anyway, dear Julian was a very sweet and wonderful man, and we will miss him very, very much.
Thank you. Kevin?
I'm Kevin McKinney. I have a candle, first of joy and excitement that we finally have our much promised you the vote thing happening, and I'm grateful for those who already have taken 70 of the 100 names that we had ready this morning. But if you wanted to take them, there are a couple left, and we'll be doing this for a long time. I'm also prospectively grateful for anybody who wants to help staff the table at some point. But I have a deep concern on my heart, which is, I'm sure something that a number of us are thinking about this morning, which is the political violence attempted that we witnessed last night. So I won't editorialize about it, but it's deeply disturbing to me.
Amen.
I'm Bonnie Stronach, and I'm lighting this candle for Sharon Gibbons, who completed her treatment this last week, and so it's also a candle of hope that she's on the track of healing. So, hi Sharon, again, I know she's watching.
Hi, I'm Bethany. I'm lighting this candle. Two of my nomadic children are finally back safe here in South Carolina after over a month of camping across this beautiful country. Another one of my nomadic children is camping at the moment. But I'm up here mostly for my fourth, my son-in-law. There is a website that just went live, and it gives me a lot of hope. Because there's an amazing group of people that the Biden administration is pumping a ton of money in to an organization, a nonprofit called Activate. Some of you scientists in here will know because you've heard about this. And it's hard for me to wrap my mind around it, but I'm going to share a little bit because I think it might give you some hope as well. Activate's, they brought 62 new fellows. And they are driving meaningful change toward a sustainable and equitable society. And this was out of more than 1,000 applicants. This new class of fellows is pioneering some of today's most promising innovations across a range of critical sectors that includes energy, transportation, manufacturing, agriculture, national security. During the 2-year Activate Fellowship, the new fellows will turn their breakthroughs into businesses and transform into high-impact science entrepreneurs. The CEO says, people, not ideas alone, move the world forward. It's through the drive and determination of brilliant scientists and engineers that we are witnessing true progress. Our current Activate Fellows and alumni are already pioneering innovative solutions that make measurable difference. And they're thrilled to support the next 62 visionaries that will lead the charge in addressing our most urgent issues through groundbreaking science and technology. So if anybody would like to learn a little bit more about these 62 brilliant people, please come and see me. I want to share this information. So this is to Hitesh, if you are watching.
We need all the brilliant people we can get right now. Okay, I do want to light one final candle for those joys and concerns that remain silent in our hearts. And if you will join me and pause for a moment in silent meditation. Thank you. Now's the time for us to share our abundance. As you know, this congregation participates in Share the Plate, and that's where half of our cash collection each Sunday goes to a local charity. That's a way for us to give back to our community. If you wish to donate to Share the Plate, then just please write it on the memo line of your check or on the donation envelope. Speaking today on behalf of our Share the Plate recipient is Sierra Nicaraguan Solo. Again, I'm Southern, what do you want? I hope I pronounced it right. And Sarah's going to tell you a little bit about Justice 360 that she's representing today.
no stool today. Good morning. Just to reiterate, my name is Sierra, and I'm the legal assistant at Justice 360. We are a nonprofit dedicated to the advancement of equality and reformation of the criminal justice system. We focus on the most extreme sentences in the state, specifically death penalty appeals and juvenile cases where children are facing spending the rest of their lives in prison. Our mission is to provide legal representation to these groups. We accomplish this by direct representation as well as training other attorneys representing these types of cases. In addition, we focus on advocacy for policy change in the legislature and work alongside other social justice groups. Lastly, we engage in raising awareness of sentencing issues such as racial disparities in sentencing, how the state plans to carry out executions, and the reforms necessary to protect children from life in prison. All of our clients are indigent. They are children who cannot pay for legal representation, especially when facing such extreme legal punishment. And men who cannot afford the level of representation necessary when the state is seeking their death. We cannot provide this representation without, help from the community. And it's great that we have people like you who are willing to listen to us and let us speak out about some of our clients who are really great. I will be back on the 28th to share some stories with you guys, and I'm really looking forward to that. So thank you for hearing from me this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you, Sierra. And will the ushers please come forward now, and let's take up our collection while we hear our offertory.
This piece is by a Ukrainian composer named Miroslav Skorik, originally composed for the flute and piano as a score to a film depicting events of the World War II aftermath. It is among the myriad of works that inspire us to contemplate the human experience of misinformation, bigotry, and violence, and rise above it to our higher selves.
That was Andrew Strebkoff on the sax and Karen Peters on the piano. We'll bring them up here. We receive these gifts with gratitude and appreciation. And now for what you came for. Craig?
All right, so the trouble starts now. And some of these. Good morning again. First, I want to direct your attention to the picture of St. Francis of Assisi on the front cover of your order of service. That picture does, let me get this up here. That picture does reflect the consequences of false beliefs. In this case, a specific false belief, which I'm sure most of you, unless you've lived on the moon recently, are very familiar with, the big lie or the stealing of the 2000 election. We'll move on. Well, we're going to talk about that particular event in a little more detail in a few minutes. But wait a minute. You know, damn, I could have provided a really good caption for that picture. Our fourth UU principle, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. Would have worked. All right, false beliefs. Let's narrow the focus and talk about what we mean by them and, you know, which kinds we're worried about. There are many kinds of false beliefs. In fact, we're awash in them every day. Most of them are innocuous little things like old wives' tales and silly superstitions, and popular misconceptions. These kinds of beliefs are easily dispelled without causing thrown ketchup bottles or massive riots. When we learn the truth about a wives' tale or a popular misconception, we're glad to get the new information. We're glad to be corrected. We don't have to spend any more time worrying about it. For example, if you didn't know it before, I didn't know this before, there is no increased risk of cramps by swimming right after eating. There's one you can use this summer. Let the kids go in after they eat, no problem. So the kinds of false beliefs that cause us so much grief, especially when challenged by the naked truth, are those that satisfy some deep emotional need, such as one's personal dignity, or a social need like membership in a cult, or fear of punishment for not believing it, perhaps in one's imagined hereafter. Such self-delusions can be and have been harmful to society and to the individuals who hold them. All right, well, where do these harmful false beliefs come from? How do they start? Why? Well, common sources are religious extremism, government propaganda, conspiracy theories, and irresponsible, I'm sad to say, irresponsible journalism. And of course, the outright lie by high authority. And I refer specifically now to what's been termed the big lie. Let's talk about that one a little bit. When Trump spread the big lie that the 2020 election was rigged and stolen, thus invalid, the foundation of our country was weakened. And by foundation, I mean public faith in the rule of law, which is the keystone of a republic. With that lie, he attacked faith in our electoral process, respect for court orders, our Constitution, and congressional investigative powers. When the president spread this big lie, he enlisted and demanded complicity in that lie with his cabinet, the rank and file of his executive branch, his political campaign organization, his attorneys, and the members of his own political party. He still expects everyone who is loyal to him to repeat the lie, rationalize the lie, spread the lie, and thus become liars themselves. And now, We have seen thousands of careers and reputations have been destroyed by the people following that lie. At present, maybe this number is not quite right, things change quickly. At present, my reading, 8 high-level members of the Trump team have been given prison sentences, federal prison sentences, on obstruction of justice, perjury, and contempt of Congress charges. Others are under indictment and are awaiting trial, or they're plea bargaining to avoid prosecution and incarceration. Just a couple of weeks ago, Rudy Giuliani, America's mayor, was disbarred in the state of New York. Rudy Giuliani, disbarred in New York. It's shocking how one man's lies can ruin so many lives. Oh, wait a minute, back up. As to the January 6th rioters, let me give you that number. More than 1,230 of them have been charged with federal crimes, and over 400 have been incarcerated in federal prisons for their actions in that event. So, and more investigations or arrests are continuing. These are people that followed and spread the big lie from one man. It's shocking how one man's lies can ruin so many lives and gainfully employ so many defense attorneys. Indeed, what MAGA has actually come to stand for now is making attorneys get attorneys. Seriously, that one lie and the false belief in it by so many Americans has left us all sad and cynical about the authority of our courts, our democratic process, and the future of our own democracy. Okay, moving on from that one. There's lots more to worry about. Throughout history, we have seen hundreds, if not thousands, of examples of mass hysteria, mob violence, and hideous atrocities, major wars born out of false beliefs. There's a couple examples: the Crusades, the Spanish Inquisition, the execution of people accused of heresy or witchcraft, slavery, the Holocaust. That's just a few. The million-dollar question is, and this really puzzles me, the million-dollar question is, what prevents us from learning from past mistakes? These are glaring lessons of history, yet we keep repeating them. Well, Mark Twain said, "There ain't nothing to be learned from the second kick of a mule." He also put it another way: no amount of evidence will ever convince a fool. Bertrand Russel names false pride as the chief cause of people believing and clinging to false beliefs with such truculent tenacity. In spite of their usual absurdity, and in spite of being shown reliable evidence to the contrary, they persist in them. Well, what kinds of false prides is he talking about? Which ones are the worst actors? Well, Russell names pride of nationality, pride of ethnicity, pride of gender, especially misogyny and homophobia, pride of religion. Let's start with pride of nationality. Englishman Bertrand Russell offers the following confession on that one. He, quote, I gotta get my glasses on to read this one, it's too good to miss any words. When I was young, France was still regarded as the traditional enemy of England, and I gathered as an unquestionable truth that one Englishman could defeat 3 Frenchmen. When Germany became the enemy, this belief was modified, and English people ceased to mention the French propensity for eating frogs. Today, most Englishmen and Americans are quite unable to see that the national pride of a great power is essentially as unjustifiable as that of a little Balkan country. Food for thought. Close quote. All right, let's talk about false pride of religion. Now, out there in the world, as a Unitarian Universalist, let me be very clear here. We don't regard religion itself as a problem. Religion is a sacred and personal thing, and we respect everyone's right to worship as they choose. All of the great religions have inspired, comforted, and guided people. The problem arises when ruling authorities hold that the religion of the majority is the only one true religion, and all others are an affront to God and man, and therefore must be eliminated either by political economic pressure, and in some cases even by righteous violence. And right here in our country today, there are people at various levels of power who think that their Bible-based religious doctrine should trump or even replace public school teachings of history and science, and that their religion should be imposed on the general population whether they like it or not. Now, I speak here of the current groundswell of delusional white Christian nationalism, not Christianity, but white Christian nationalism, which is anything but Christian in its aims and practices. And that was a topic very recently preached on here by our former minister, Reverend Neil Jones. Delusional religious beliefs throughout world history have triggered the most sadistic, malevolent cruelties ever seen. The Spanish Inquisition, imprisonment and execution of heretics and outspoken scientists. Let's just say that we should work to ensure that such horrors remain where they belong in history. Freedom of religion is a natural human right and should be protected and cherished, and that includes freedom from religion. On that topic, here's a little bit from Bertrand Russel. Quote, "In Peking, China in 1921, while I was on a lecture tour, I suddenly contracted double pneumonia. But in addition to that, I had heart disease, kidney disease, dysentery, and phlebitis. My illnesses provided me with the pleasure of reading my own obituary notices." One missionary paper I remember had an obituary notice of one sentence: "Missionaries may be pardoned for heaving a sigh of relief at the news of Mr. Bertrand Russell's death." He goes on, I fear they must have heaved a sigh of a different sort when they found out I was not dead after all. I was told that the Chinese said that they would bury me by the Western Lake and build a shrine to my memory. I have some slight regret that this did not happen, as I might have become a god, which would have been very chic for an atheist. Mathematician and humorist, huh? False pride of ethnicity. Oh boy, now here's the bad actor. It's justified slavery and Jim Crow, genocides. In less than 90 years ago, the Holocaust. Doesn't it, or shouldn't it, deeply trouble us that 20th century Germany, a nation of people just like ours today, a modern industrialized nation of prosperous, mostly well-educated Christians, gave their full-throated Sig Heils and bloody hands-on participation through some 8 years of such a horrible orgy of murderous cruelty? Russell wonders, does that same capacity for evil passion reside within us here today as well? Are we not the same human animal as the Germans of that period, such a short time ago? Could we also, under the same conditions, be aroused to evil passions? Yes, says Russell, yes. I'm going to quote here, and viewer discretion is advised. Quote, "Ideas and principles that do harm are, as a rule, though not always, cloaks for evil passions. In Lisbon, back when heretics were publicly burned, it sometimes happened that one of them, by a particularly edifying recantation, would be granted the boon of being strangled before being put in the flames. This would make the Christian spectators so furious that the authorities had great difficulty in preventing them from lynching the penitent and burning him on their own account. One can expect that the sadistic pleasure experienced by the watchers of heresy burning and torture, the sadistic pleasure experienced by it, contributed to the general belief that the burning of heretics was a righteous act." Unquote. What Russell was getting at with this gruesome anecdote is that most people are capable of being aroused to malevolent intent and can even take visceral pleasure in such malevolence as long as their beliefs justify it as righteous. Another source of false beliefs is propaganda, very common. Its primary purpose is to make one group of people hate or dehumanize another group of people. That's its usual purpose. And used most often by fear-mongering. Propaganda is used to whip up political votes. You heard it recently from Trump, quote, "Millions of criminals and insane people pouring over our border to rape and kill innocent Americans in their beds." Oh boy, eye rolls, huh? And it's also often used to whip up support for unjust wars. George W. Bush, quote, "We cannot wait for the final proof, the smoking gun that could come in the shape of a mushroom cloud." That was to get into Iraq. And of course, Hitler's highly effective propaganda machine and all of its unspeakable consequences. Let's just say that almost all propaganda is BS, and we really need to learn to recognize it when we hear it, call it out for what it is. What's required is careful listening and a capacity for critical thinking, and if necessary, a willingness to get into good trouble. Conspiracy theories. They spread like wildfire now on social media platforms. Even the most ridiculous, absurd conspiracy theories get dangerous traction. Jewish space lasers started the California wildfires. Jewish space lasers. That anti-Semitic and absurdly impossible nonsense was started on Twitter by a United States representative from Georgia. Marjorie Taylor Greene started that online. And she even doubled down on it not too long ago by requesting supplemental funding be added to a House Appropriations foreign aid bill, supplemental funding for developing and employing space lasers to protect our southern border. In writing, addendum to a House bill. Marjorie Taylor Greene. So that's how things like it. And the crazy proverbial uncle at the Thanksgiving table who tells us all that Hillary's emails contain national secrets that the Chinese are now using to cause ship-to-hitch bridges and door panels to fall off American airplanes. People believe that stuff. He tells you, look it up. Yeah, you're right, you're gonna go look it up, sure. Online hate speech. Here we go. Hate speech here in the U.S. is most commonly racist, anti-Semitic, homophobic, and anti-immigration. It's also sometimes directed at liberal politicians with violent outcomes, such as the January 6 riots and the attempted murder of Nancy Pelosi's husband in their California home. Hate speech has grown both in intensity and effect with the spread of online chat rooms and poorly monitored social media sites. White supremacist groups use social media to incubate and spread hate messages. When their rhetoric infects certain marginalized individuals, it moves offline with deadly effect. For example, a guy named Wade Page, a white supremacist, was radicalized online, and he murdered 6 people at a Sikh temple in Wisconsin. Dylan Roof murdered 9 black people in Charleston. He was radicalized online. A guy named Robert Bauer murdered 11 worshipers at a Pennsylvania synagogue. He'd been active on a site called Gab, a Twitter-like site used by white supremacists. Hate speech triggers hate crimes. Hate crimes are defined as bias-motivated crimes. In October of 2023, the FBI published their 2022 stats on hate crimes. The 2022 data reported 11,634 cases of hate crimes compared to 10,840 the previous year. However, those numbers are grossly undercounted. First of all, only 42% of all violent crimes of any kind are even reported to the authorities. Also, only 65% of police agencies nationwide reported their hate crime statistics to the FBI for 2021. Their excuse was there's something about the format for the reporting. The FBI admits its own annual hate crime statistics vastly undercount bigotry-based attacks on blacks, Jews, Asians, and LBGT victims. But in spite of the underreporting, the FBI's compilation does reveal concerning trends Of all the bias-motivated crimes reported, a huge majority of them were based on race and ethnicity. Religion and sexual orientation came in close, tied at second. Of the 10,229 known offenders, 51% were white, 21% black, 17% race unknown. Our own Jim Kimmler, where's Jim? Jim, there he is, gave an excellent, outstanding breakdown of the statistics on hate crimes in the United States and the trends, with emphasis on the growing problem of hate crimes against LGBT victims. That was an excellent sermon, Jim. Never forget it. All right, so anyway, you've heard, I've given you the problem, so what are we going to do? Well, first of all, we live in an age of misinformation, and that ain't going to end. And second, you can't change human nature. Our vices and virtues are here to stay. But what we can change are the laws and institutions that keep our vices in check and our virtues in force, and our population better educated. Through our vote, we establish our laws. Now, we can't burn heretics anymore because there's a law against that. And we're forbidden to own and sell slaves because there's a law against that. And we can't go out and lynch our favorite suspect anymore. After all, you know, it was liberal education that brought Europe out of the Dark Ages centuries ago. And it's generations of the democratic process here since our founding that have made America a fairer and prouder place to live for all. What we need is further political action for the elimination of unjust war. We need better and fairer economic policies to improve prosperity for our poor and working classes. We need greater educational resources and organization so that we can begin once again to teach our students to think clearly and rationally and be capable of civil discourse and willingness to consider alternate points of view. We have to teach the young people that stuff. We're lost. According to Bertrand Russel, what are most needed for a peaceful and prospering society are the public virtues of charity and tolerance. These virtues derive from high-quality liberal education, not from the fanatical false beliefs offered by the various battling isms. We must, as citizens, as you use, understand that the happiness of one political party cannot be achieved by causing the ruin of the other. A clear, rational, liberal voice and a clear, rational, conservative voice are both essential for democracy to work. We need both. To think otherwise is a false belief. So let us respect and acknowledge other faiths and political economic philosophies with tolerance and charity. But, as Barack Obama said often at his rallies, don't boo, vote. And vote our consciences in good faith according to the principles we espouse here as you use. Thus should we covenant.
Our closing hymn. Closing hymn is number 338. I seek the spirit of a child, and childlike learning. Teach them the truth to begin with, and they won't get into all these frightening things that Craig just told us about. Number 338, I'm going to play just a little bit of it so you remember how it goes, and then please sing all three verses, and please stand. I seek the spirit of a child.
closing words this morning are a short poem. Oh, be seated, please. Our closing words this morning are a short poem by Lebanese-born poet, artist, and philosopher Khalil Gibran. The lie said to the truth, "Let's take a bath together. The well water is very nice." The truth, still suspicious, tested the water and found out it was really nice. So they got naked and bathed. But suddenly the lie leapt out of the water and fled, wearing the clothing of the truth. The truth, furious, climbed out of the well to get her clothes back. But the world, seeing the naked truth, looked away with anger and contempt. Poor truth returned to the well and disappeared forever, hiding her shame. Since then, the lie runs around the world dressed as the truth, and society is very happy because the world has no desire to know the naked truth. Mark Twain, as usual, one sentence does it all. He sums it up. A lie gets halfway around the world while the truth is still putting its shoes on. That's it, folks. Enjoy the day. Thank you all.
Thank you, Craig. We're going to extinguish our chalice now. As we extinguish our chalice, may its flame glow gently in our hearts and lead us down the path until we're together again. If you'll join me now for our congregational benediction. Seated for just a few minutes and listen to the first part of a song, the postlude that Richard's going to play. You have to be carefully taught. Just sit down for a minute or two.
You've got to be taught to hate and fear. You've got to be taught from year to year. It's got to be drummed in your dear little ear. You've got to be carefully taught. You've got to be taught to be afraid of people whose eyes are oddly made, and people whose skin is a different shade. You've got to be carefully taught. You've got to be carefully taught. Thank you for joining our service today. Please take some time to visit with each other.
Until next Sunday, thank you.
Do some stuff.